Good morning, people. Down the workshop again. I've got done with 7 more plugs that I would like to display. All have been turned on a lathe, and these are gonna be the last plugs I'm making before the local lure fishing season would start at May 1st. So I would give you some close-up shots of these plugs, and after I take them upstairs to give them a test swim in the bathtub. Alright. Okay, here's actually is the jointed plug that I already had introduced in a blank condition video. Painted with brush painted by hand with acrylic paints. And note that I've disguised the closure wrappings of the through wire shaft. Just put some epoxy around here, around the closed coil, and filed it flash to the body taper just for a neater look. This lure does not have any cams here, so the movement is limited, and main purpose of this is that when the lure swims, that the two sections would hit one another, generating sound. Because this lure has been designed to target the European sea lure, the large catfish, which is said to respond to sound very well. Also has a little rattle chamber. This lure does not have any belly ballast, because I do not want it to dive that deep. Okay. Here is the second one of my catfish lures. Also displayed this one in a blank condition before. Also painted with acrylic paints by hand brushing. After the first blank test, I saw that it did not dive that deep because this abachi wood is very buoyant. So I've embedded a chunk of lead about 1 ounce heavy right here behind the belly hook hanger to get it to dive a bit deeper. And the 4 rattle chambers really generate some noise. Also, here I've disguised the closure wraps of the through wire shaft just by putting epoxy glue here, and afterwards I filed it flush to the body taper. Homemade lip of 1.5mm aluminum sheet. Okay. Here's a plug I made on a short term, a so-called bottle head plug. I did this with the help of some guys on stripersonline.com. These lures are supposed to be cast for striper bass into the surf, but I thought I would try it for local pike as well. Tested this one in a blank condition as well after sealing, and I found that the toe eye really has to place horizontally. If you place it vertically, this real drastically decreases the lure's wiggle. I guess I would work it like a Lucky 13 in a so-called skim and swim manner. Let it pop on the surface, and on a steady retrieve it would dive down. I do not know how deep it would, but as it seems in my blank test that it would have a bit more of a lively action compared to my Lucky 13 knockoffs, also would dive a bit deeper. I shall see how it would work. Unlike the genuine striper bass plugs, I did not do a through wire but just use screw eyes. For pike this would be rigid enough. Never had any failures with my screw eyes. Okay. Here's a real big plug turned down from Meranti. Sports big musky screw eyes as hook hangers and line ties. I intend to use this one in fall season in a shallow lake in Hamburg City. It does not have any added ballast because I wanted to dive as shallow as possible. Yep, painted with acrylic paints by hand brushing. Maybe you can see the glitter sparkling now as I turn it in the light. This is glitter jelly that I apply before putting on the final top coats of epoxy. Okay. Another plug, bit smaller than the previous one, but otherwise made the same manner. No added ballast to have it swim shallow, painted with acrylic paints and some kind of wet and wet techniques. I would apply a base coat 2 times for full coverage, and then I'd apply different colors, and I will not wait until the previous ones would dry. I will paint them all at one time so they would blend together. Well, most lure carvers use airbrush, but I like to paint them by hand. I do not have any airbrush gear. Okay, here's another plug, bit smaller and more buoyant, turned from a broomstick. On this one I've actually practiced the through wire, so this one has a wire shaft passing through the entire body with figure 8 hook hangers slid over the central wire shaft and all epoxy together. Here I did not disguise the closure wraps, I just painted them over. Okay. And here's a giant Bass Oreno, also without any ballast. The belly hook hanger and the line tie consists of a kind of a paper clip wire form passing through a bore leading this way. And the rear hook hanger is a very long twisted wire I carefully epoxied in. One more thing about these eyes. I ran out of bigger lure eyes, so in a shop for office supplies I found these labels, very cheap. I think it's the cheapest stick-on eyes you could get. Cost €1.75 for several hundreds of these, so the smaller ones would make up for the pupils and the larger ones for the peripheries. Not looking very professional, but for me it's okay. So I'm gonna go upstairs now and give them a bathtub swim. Alright. Okay people, at the top now. First testing this big catfish lure of abachi wood. I don't think one could see much. See, this is the way it floats up. Don't think one could see much in the top because these lures are really big. The rattle is quite loud, maybe you can hear it. Of course, all lures would require tow eye tuning in the outdoors. I estimate this one to go down, well, 8 to 10 feet maybe. When I've tested it in the blank condition before having embedded this 1 ounce belly weight, on a slow retrieve the tail end would sit just below the surface, generating a wake, but as I've said, I wanted to dive down a bit deeper. Well, it has a nice action to it. Though the belly weight decreases the wiggle a bit, but it's still okay. Alright. Now the second jointed catfish lure. This is the way it floats up, being unweighted. Has a moderate wiggle. And on a slow retrieve, it seems it's still causing a wake, but after my experiences, when I'm fishing them in the outdoors, they will naturally run deeper than shown in the top here. I do not know whether you can hear the two sections banging together. I will keep quiet for some time. Yeah, generates quite a fair amount of noise when the sections are banging together, so my goal of design is accomplished, I'd say. No, I'm okay with this one. I'd estimate it to run as deep as 2 to 3 feet maybe, not deeper. Okay. Now the bottle head plug. Could I do this thing? It might be better this way. Okay. Floats up a little lopsided, but just a little. Sits quite high in the water. I didn't put any ballast because I found that any belly ballast on such lures decreases the action. Has a nice wiggle. Yeah. As I said before in my introduction, the wiggle is a bit more pronounced compared to a Lucky 13. Yeah, this is the way I'm gonna fish it. Let it float up, jerk it down to dive, so it will pull some bubbles. So this would be the most attractive retrieve pattern for pike. Well, I'm pretty much satisfied with this bottlehead plug. I'm very sure it would have an appeal for local pike as well. It would still, even being unweighted, it would still cast pretty well due to its streamlined shape. So pretty much satisfied with this one. Okay. Now the smaller plug with the through wire. See, floats up quite high as well. Doesn't have any added ballast. Strong wiggle. Doesn't seem to blow out. Maybe dives a bit deeper than I would like it to dive. But on a slow retrieve, it shouldn't be a problem to keep it shallow as shallow as 2 to 3 feet. That's enough for me. Oh, that's fine. Nice wiggling action. But it leans to one side. It would require toe-eye tuning in the outdoors. Okay. Now the big plug. Also unweighted. You see, floats up quite high as well. Maybe almost half of the body volume still sticks out. Oops. Swivel came off. I didn't close it. Alright, I gotta close it. Okay, once again. Not swivel, snap. Yep, also very nice action. Wouldn't dive too deep either. Yeah. Pretty much satisfied with it. Some weeks ago I've purchased a heavy rod that would handle these big logs of wood anyway. Okay, now the second one. Smaller plug. See, also floats up. It's only halfway submerged. I want them to run shallow. If I would have placed belly weight, the wiggle would have been somewhat more moderate, but they would also dive deeper due to being less buoyant in that case. Oh, very nice. You see, if you retrieve it slow, it still has a nice action, so I can fish in pretty shallow. That's what I want. Maybe this one might even go down 4, maybe even 5 feet. But if I retrieve it slow like this, it will remain at 2 feet depth. That's okay for me. Alright. Yep. And now finally the giant Bass Oreno knockoff. Also floats up high in the water, a bit tail heavy. Now this one does not swim that well. But it does sport the typical feature of a Bass Oreno, that if you jerk it below the surface, it would pop back to the same spot. But the wiggle is not like it's supposed to be. I'm not 100% satisfied with this one. Probably because this timber material is too heavy. The original doesn't tip its nose up and down. This one does. But I guess with that action of jerking it under, retrieving it for a few yards, letting it pop back to the surface, jerk it again on the spot, it could still coax a strike. Oh, I'm not too satisfied with this one. Could have turned out better, but all the other 6 lures are okay. I'm still gonna give it a try in the outdoors. Nowadays, I'm convinced that even the weirdest kind of action could still coax strikes, which I did not believe something like 10 or 20 years ago. Okay, thanks a lot for watching, folks. Bye. Okay people, back down the workshop again. Hung my lures in the rack to dry from the water, so tomorrow I could pack them away in the stowaway boxes. pretty much satisfied with all of these lures apart from the Bass Oreno knockoff. Doesn't swim to my satisfaction. It doesn't sport the typical wiggle of a Bass Oreno. Probably this is because the lure is quite heavy. I don't see any other reason, because I've placed the tow eye right in center of the lure like I do with my smaller knockoffs as well, that swim more lively. Probably it's just because more mass has to be moved by the integrated diving vane. But what it also does is it tips its nose sometimes. The others don't do that, but as I've said before during my test, who knows what kind of swimming actions the fish are up to respond to. So I'm definitely going to give it a try. And pretty much fond of the bottlehead plug. I'm very desperate to be casting it as from May 1st on shallow waters. When it floats up, I'm gonna jerk it and give it a few yards of retrieve to dive down. As we've seen, it's pulling a bubble trace as well, because air is being caught in the scoop of the mouth here. Pretty much similar to a Lucky 13, and I know the Lucky 13 is a great pike catcher for shallow water, so I do not see any reason why this one should not work on pike. The dive would be a bit deeper than a Lucky 13, I suppose, and also the wiggle is a bit more pronounced at a higher frequency compared to a Lucky 13. Alright, also the jointed catfish lure fulfilled the goal of design by banging the two sections together. So I intend to fish for catfish for the first time of my life in this oncoming season. Never caught one before, and the stocks are increasing in our local river Elbe, so I'm hoping to catch one sooner or later. Got to be determined enough, that's the problem. Okay, anyway, thanks a lot for watching my latest lure video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and probably I could provide some ideas or input to fellow lure carvers out there. Thanks a lot, and happy Easter. Bye bye.